moment on Cannabis Tech. Here we take just 15 minutes to discuss some of the exciting new technologies in cannabis and hemp. I'm your host, Christina Etter, and in today's episode, we're speaking with Dr. Jason Lupoi, who is the editor-in-chief with Terpenes Testing Magazine, and we're talking about the Concentration 2019 Expo that's coming up, and this expo is designed specifically for the evolving world of cannabis concentrates. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hi, thank you for having me, Christina.
Absolutely. You know, I am personally a huge fan of concentrates. I've watched the evolution of the products over the last several years. I was in Denver at the time of the big shakeup when the journalists had tested some concentrates that they got on their own and discovered that they were actually full of some pesticides and contaminants that were not good for us. So I'm certainly looking forward to this conversation. And you know, like I mentioned, proper testing of cannabis and extracts is absolutely critical for the safety of these products. And like I mentioned, most of us remember that shakeup in Denver a few years ago. So how have cannabis concentrates really kind of evolved over the last several years in terms of their cleanliness and purity?
Well, it's interesting that you would bring up that study because I actually just got to talk to the reporter that bought all those products and took them to the lab for testing in Denver. So it was a really cool conversation to be able to kind of hear about how that shakeup that you were referring to actually came about. But I think that there's still work to be done. There's still a lot of stories about products failing. California's having this issue right now because they just implemented new regulations, and some places just weren't up to speed with those regulations. And I think that as time evolves, the products will continue to get better. I think that the biggest evolution that I've seen hasn't necessarily been in negative aspects of concentrates, but I think that the fact that a lot more people nowadays are interested in reintroducing terpenes into the concentrates and kind of maximizing the ensemble effect that many people have postulated. I think that's probably the biggest evolution that I've seen, and also this idea that places, I'm here in Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of discussion around these more targeted therapies where people are making concentrates, not just to have whatever they extracted, but actually to pinpoint different cannabinoids and terpenes. So maybe a blend of a few cannabinoids and a few terpenes to have a specific effect on the end user.
Absolutely, and thank goodness for that evolution. Concentrates seem so much better now that they have that full flavored effect and the full effect that the terpenes and full cannabinoid profile provide. So tell me a little bit now about the motivation behind concentration, this expo. Is the demand for concentrates on the rise?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I saw a statistic, which is, most of the time in this industry, statistics, by the time you read them, they're probably antiquated. But I think that this study was, maybe from the tail end of 2018, and they were saying that concentrate sales were expected to be something like $8.5 billion by the year 2022, with about $3.5 billion of that coming from edibles. And so, I think there was another statistic that recently came out that, Canadians, 1 out of every 5 Canadians were preferring concentrates. And I think that's partially because they've just kind of introduced the concentrates into the market. I'm not sure if that was like in theory. I think that was actual people using concentrates versus flower. But I think that concentrate use is definitely on the rise. And again, people are kind of, seeking to deconstruct the plant into its individual, molecules for cannabinoids and terpenes, and then kind of add in what they want, because maybe you don't need some of the rest of it for your particular ailment. So I think that's where the concentrates allow you to have that canvas to kind of develop the product that you see being fit for a specific end user. But I think the other motivation for this conference, so I just got back from the ACS, the American Chemical Society national meeting, and I specifically went because the American Chemical Society now has a cannabis science division, and I wanted to go in support of those folks. They were sharing a lot of their innovative research, and while that was a small section of the ACS conference, the total conference had something like 16,000 people. And it was a very, I mean, it was a massive conference. And I think that, some of the conferences, really there's a lot of conferences and trade shows in the cannabis industry nowadays. And I think that, we didn't necessarily want to set out to be the largest. We wanted to try to be the most impactful for a specific segment of the industry. And so, at Terpenes and Testing, we cover horticultural science, we cover, basic cannabis chemistry, and we cover laboratory analytics. And then on the Extraction Magazine side, we cover specifically things revolving around extraction. And there was such a demand for that specific content that's why, Extraction Magazine spun out of Terpenes and Testing Magazine. And so, because we cover those different areas, we wanted to kind of dedicate a conference to a smaller type of content. And so Concentration 2019, we thought we would dedicate that to extraction methodologies, extraction products, ways to make extraction products contaminant free, regulations, things of that nature. But we're also going to have, maybe not quite an equal part, but we're going to have a strong section on laboratory analytics and in-house analytics, things of that nature, because I'm an analytical chemist, and I feel like the laboratory analytics are, basically ubiquitous across this industry, whether you're a grower, whether you're an extraction, manufacturer, or whether, you're doing some kind of other product formulation, there's analytics across the board there. So that's kind of why we chose to go with those two aspects for Concentration 2019. And then we just basically parsed out the horticultural science, which is what we'll do at Canna FarmCon in the beginning of August.
Fantastic. So can you give people kind of an idea of what they can expect at Concentration 2019? Like, what are some of the various, you kind of touch base on a couple of the topics, but what are kind of the key takeaways that maybe they can expect from attending this conference?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, I've often likened what we do to being time travelers, where we're trying to venture into the future and seek out what the next innovative thing in the cannabis space will be, especially since this industry is on such a fast-paced evolutionary course. And so, I think that a lot of what we look to showcase is that frontier, whether it be from a research and development standpoint, a product formulation standpoint, or, cool gadgets and other technology instrumentation that can help people, make more effective, safer, compliant products. So we're going to have definitely that futuristic feel to a lot of what people will experience. But at the same time, one of our keynote speakers is Frenchie Cannoli. And Frenchie Cannoli brings this completely, different and I feel balancing effect to the conference, because Frenchie's, made a career out of traversing the globe and kind of, seeking to learn and preserve, ethnic ways of producing solventless products like hash. And so I really feel excited to be able to have that sort of juxtaposition between the past being preserved and also the future kind of evolving before our eyes. I really feel like that's going to kind of harmonize, both aspects of the cannabis industry. And so, we've also heard that some people say that, some conferences that they've been to, they felt like it was too low level. And that's kind of, that's hard to avoid, because there's so many people coming to, we always kind of say people coming back to cannabis, after, 80 odd years of misinformation. I think that, what we're seeking to do with this conference is kind of meld those two regions, and I feel like, you know, John McKay is another keynote speaker that we'll have, and John's kind of trajectory into the cannabis industry in part parallels my own, because John was working for Waters Corporation. It's a very well-known analytical instrumentation provider, and he happened to start, you know, migrating into the cannabis industry. People were looking for equipment. He was consulting with people, and he was really blown away by the passion that people had, the dedication people had, and really, you know, the difference just from the normal 9-to-5 sort of suit and tie life that many scientists and other people that have kind of gotten into the industry have come to see with cannabis and being a part of this industry. And I think that, you know, getting back to what I was saying, we were hearing from some people that they just felt like things were at too low of a level with some conferences that they had been to. And so they were asking us to, you know, not have so much 101 type content, but to kind of escalate it a little bit into, like, you know, I guess like a 201, you know, type content. And so that's kind of what we're seeking to do, is kind of step up the game a little bit, still have some of the basic content for people that are new to the industry, but also for people that are kind of, you know, not really interested in hearing about THC and CBD, and want to go to things like minor cannabinoids and terpenes and things like that. I think those are some of the main takeaway points that people will find.
That sounds fantastic. So just briefly, because we are running out of time here, but just briefly, let's talk about the venue just a little bit, because I looked up the website for this, and the venue itself looks like a reason to attend this event. So tell me a little bit about where this is being held.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this is at the Pala Casino Spa and Resort. It's a Native American owned property, which is, you know, one cool thing in and of itself. So we will be the first cannabis conference ever to be on, you know, Native American property. You know, the venue itself is I think it's about equidistant between LA and San Diego. And one of the cool things, like when I first looked it up, you know, I saw the beauty in the actual you know, structure, but also, you know, kind of looking at the history of the area. It was interesting to read that Native American tribes, you know, used to gather there. So they would come from their respective, their respective regions, and they would specifically come to that area to gather together and you know, collaborate, commiserate, you know, network. And that's exactly what we're going there to do as well. So I feel like it's kind of like a kind of like a cool trend there, and you know, I think that given the location, you know, I think it's going to make for a fantastic show.
Most definitely. So tell our listeners now how they can sign up for this event.
You can just go to concentration2019.com. You know, you can find more information about the conference. You know, the tickets are available, sponsorships, exhibitor booth. You can see who the speakers are, things of that nature. Also, there is a ticket discount for Cannabis Tech readers if you use the promo code DABS, DABS, all caps. If you do that at checkout, you will get 50% off of your ticket prices.
Fantastic. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being with us today on A Tech Moment. It's been an honor to talk to you and to talk about the concentration event that's coming up. And we look forward to catching up with you and see how it went.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the invite, and I look forward to giving you that update.
All right. Thanks, Jason.